Hi, and welcome to the first episode of the Wellthy Living radio show. It's Lisa Entwistle here, your host of the radio show, and I am so excited to be here today to bring you this first episode. So each fortnight, I'll be having conversations with a variety of different health professionals, different wellness professionals, and we'll cover topics on physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness. We'll discuss how our choices impact our work and our relationships and our health. And then what I'll do with the guests is try to then suggest ways that can help you live that wealthy life. So in case you're not aware of my business, Wellthy Living, and you haven't sort of looked at the typo here, that's wealthy, meaning Wellthy. So it is a bit of a play on words. So I thought I'd just clear that up straight away before we move any further. So I just want to also just stress that for me, a big important thing with everything that I do is about connection, because I think connection is medicine. And so my intention is to guide you to live a wealthy life through connection with yourself, others, and the world around you. So today, the topic that we're going to be discussing is how do you care less but still care? So and still be caring. So caring without over caring. So not attaching importance to the outcomes of other people's choices. So maybe relinquishing the need to feel responsible or to have control over someone else's outcome. So to discuss this topic further, I've brought on a wonderful guest, Nathalie Martinek. And Nathalie's is a bridge between the scientific paradigm and spirituality. So she has amazing intuition as well as being trained as a scientist and as a professional healer. And she's able to really, as a healer and a scientist, be able to heal people, but in a really grounded and practical way. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation between Nathalie and I. We have lots of deep conversations about lots of things, and so many times we wish we hit record, and this time we're going to. So without holding back any further, I'd love to bring Nathalie in and introduce you. Well, I've already done that. So let's hear from Nathalie. So welcome, Nathalie.
Hello. Thank you, Lisa, for having me.
Oh, pleasure. I'm so excited to have you on the first show. It's a real privilege.
I feel the same way.
So we sort of discussed, a variety of topics we were going to talk about, and we decided with gaining feedback from a number of people as well that this topic was a really important topic and comes up for a lot of people. So do you think, let's maybe start by just discussing, what is caring and what is over caring? So maybe you can take us into a little bit of information about your perspective on what the difference is between caring and over caring.
Great, thanks. Okay, so caring is about providing whatever is needed for a person or a situation and basically doing your end of the work involved in supporting a person or resolving a situation, versus over caring, which is doing your bit as well as the responsibility or the duties of someone else. Not all of it, some of it. And so then you're exerting more of your own energy to complete a task or to fulfill an expectation versus just doing enough. So that's my distinction.
Okay, so yeah, thank you for that. And that makes it quite clear. So how does a person know when they're caring too much? Like, do they have, is there this alarm bell that goes off, when they have physical symptoms or mental symptoms? Or is it something that they can be doing for a really long time and develop a pattern and not even know that they're even doing it?
Yeah, so I don't think we are aware that we're overcaring in the moment that it's happening. I think we develop a sense of resentment over time that we're doing so much for others and we're not being appreciated, no one's reciprocating, and we feel tired. So it's more of if you've been doing it too long, or long enough that you start to realize you're not feeling happy or fulfilled or satisfied, and probably overwhelmed, creating a lot more work for yourself than you would have liked. And so in the moment is that takes some time and self-awareness versus knowing that you've done too much and that you're no longer happy and you no longer want to help anyone because you're just like, what's the point? I'm not getting anything in return.
Okay, so yeah, so basically, does this generally happen over long periods of time, over short periods of time, or is it different for everybody?
It's diverse, but you can overcare in a one-off situation versus, and you can have a habit or a pattern of overcaring for people because it's your nature to feel like you're just being generous and you want to help people. And it's beautiful to want to do that. It's just sometimes helping, the idea behind helping, or the way we define helping and what that looks like, will be different for everyone. And sometimes people think that they're helpful when they've assisted someone to go from feeling in a bad mood or a bad place into a happier place. And to them, that's being helpful. Whereas others would go, that's not my job. That's not me being helpful. Why do I need to get them out of a sad place when sadness is fine? Sadness is natural. And maybe they need to spend time in sadness so that they can appreciate happiness at another stage. So it's very individual. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense there. It can be in the moment as well as a long-term habit or pattern of relating to others.
So, I mean, from my experience, sometimes we get that feeling like the other person wants to be cared for or has this strong need to be cared or as you know, we might put it, overcared for. And we feel like maybe we're doing a really good thing by doing that because we're being a supportive friend or a supportive parent or a supportive work colleague. And we feel like we've got a really good intention in what we're doing. And so if someone was to put say to me in that sort of situation, like a health professional or someone like yourself, and say, you've got a pattern of overcaring for other people. And I would come back with going, what do you mean? I've got a really good intention and this person really needs me at the moment. And I'm just doing that. I'm doing what I feel is necessary as a friend or as a parent or as a colleague or whatever situation you're in. What would you say to that?
Yeah, there's a few things in there. So the one thing that stands out is that statement, that person really needs me right now. So why do we feel this responsibility to be needed by them? Do they have anyone else? Do they have no one else? Are there maybe professional supports that are more appropriate for them than what I have to offer? So there's this kind of relationship or a dynamic that exists between us and every other person in our life. And each dynamic will be different. And there'll be a set of expectations about our role in that dynamic. So if you're a health practitioner, there's a set of expectations of how you're going to support someone. Whereas if you're a friend, different set of expectations, parent, child, whatever. They're different rules, I guess, of how we're going to engage with each other and what we're going to do for each other. So if there's a friend situation who's going through a hard time and you are the carer in that situation, and you feel like, oh, they need me because they can't get on without me. That's the underlying statement that's in our mind. If I'm not there, they'll have no one. They won't be able to come out of their problem situation. Something bad will happen. We feel this over responsibility to look after that person's needs when in all other times in their life they've maybe been able to meet their needs. They might not be feeling so strong right now. So how's me being needed all the time going to help build their strength and their inner resources, or acknowledging that they have inner resources that they can access to help them overcome this? Because I may be able to help them resolve the situation, but what happens the next time they have a problem? Maybe they don't have the confidence to help themselves again, so they go and they reach out and they need someone else. So is our helping them by fulfilling their need that they maybe should be looking after for themselves in a different way, is that helping them to become more competent in solving problems, or is that creating a dependency or codependency? And codependency, a lot of the time, is not healthy because we're needing something from each other instead of using something within ourselves to support ourselves, or recruiting someone or people to help us, but not to take over and look after us, to support us to build our own strength or remind us of our own strength, and to go through approaches to help ourselves out of our hard situation.
I think this is, it's a really big topic, and there's so many different, on both sides, there's implications which you've highlighted now, in just what you've said now about the implications for the person before, who's being the person who's overcaring, and you talk about, them running out of energy or putting their energy until they get resentment or burnout or stress or overwhelm in having to always be there for somebody else. But then what you've just kind of said now is on the other side, the person that feels like, as I said before, using the word need, like then they need help. But ultimately, even if they do feel like that, they feel like they can't help themselves in some ways. From what you've just said now, is that maybe where the person who's being the carer is the person who's also not allowing them to have that opportunity for growth or opportunity to develop their own resilience, and therefore doesn't have has a negative implication on them going forward, because they then get into that pattern of that person that is always requiring support and need, and for other people to get them out of things, and then they don't develop their own skills and their own tools and their own resource to be able to cope in different situations. So
So it is a whole thing around self-responsibility. And are we taking more responsibility than we need to when we're caring for someone? And it's preventing that other person from stepping up and taking responsibility for the choices they've made and the situations or the consequences they find themselves in. It's not about punishing or berating people. It's about, how do I be present with them and support them to support themselves? Because I'm not helping them by I'm hindering them by overstepping. And if we look at our healthcare system, it's not, doctors, nurses, they're not trained, or the system's not designed to help people develop more responsibility for themselves or to step up responsibility. People come to see doctors often when pain, they might have put it off for a long time, and the pain or the issue has gotten so out of hand that they have no choice but to finally get help. And by then, they've waited such a long time that they haven't known all the different steps that they've taken to get them into that situation. So a doctor's role is then, okay, we need to help you with this pain. We need to deal with this thing at hand that's maybe too out of control. But nobody's in there saying, all right, let's look at what the steps that you've taken to get you here. What's been going on in your life? What are the contributing factors? What are the influences? What are the barriers to you getting other support? What are the strengths that you have in your life? Those conversations are not necessarily happening because we only have 10 to 15 minutes. So it's never supporting people to finally step up or to learn about how they've overcome things in the past and how they can apply those strengths in their current situation. Those things aren't happening. So people always go, this is wrong with me, come and fix me.
Yeah. So we're looking
at a rescuing system versus, and I'm not saying this is the case with every single doctor, but on the most part, every time I've seen a doctor, I've never had a conversation with, so, how have you solved these problems in the past? What have you done before? Like, that doesn't come up. It's like, this is what you need to do. Advice.
Yeah.
Just do it.
So
without
that's
knowing if I can do it or not.
So they don't really have that coaching element within their consultations, and they're probably, well, I assume that in their training they're not taught to do that, which is something that obviously would be great for it to be reevaluated and realise that there is a need for that. But even not just looking at doctors, even taking the example you've given us as doctors, but looking at even just a friend relationship, it sounds like, when someone steps in, it's about looking at that solution, like you've given the example for the doctor, as opposed to looking at the process and the pathway that's led you to the current situation.
Yeah. So when we have a friend and our friend decides to share their problem with me, in the past, I would have been like, ooh, I need to give them an answer. I need to have a solution because they're asking me. But then I realized, just